My word, what a cob of corn. See, that's what it's all about. Three weeks until dove season comes in, out here checking on the field, and these sunflowers are pretty much toast and all done. The grass control started off really good, but I have noticed even with the pre-emergent sprayed as well as the post-emergent spraying of the IMOX and clethodim, we still had some grass come on, and we definitely have this thistle. That seems to be the predominant broadleaf that we could not control. I'd say we still have about 90% bare soil in these sunflowers, which makes that seed very readily available to these doves. And I can still see little seeds on the ground scattered throughout. We are certainly nearing the home stretch of all this seed being gone. That's when we'll get into the cornfield, hopefully scatter them some fresh corn on the ground. This corn has got 3 weeks before it needs to be ready to hunt over, and I'm needing to bush hog it in the next week or two, and that is looking much better. That corn is really hard. We're gonna pick one and check it out here. But let's look at the weed control. Same thing as the sunflower field. We've got this late onset of grasses and that thistle in here. That's the predominant broadleaf. There's something else right here, no clue what that is. But we've got some grass coming in here. We sprayed all the same pre-emergence minus the Spartan Charge on the corn, and then did one spraying of glyphosate, because this is Roundup Ready corn. And we got pretty good control throughout most of it, I would say. But there are some pockets in here where it's much heavier than the other. Something knocked this one over, so we're gonna pick it and check here. Definitely got a dry snap to it. Oh yeah, that corn is getting very dry. That corn is really, really hard. I don't think it's harvest dry, but it is certainly hard. Now there is some moisture when I finally pop it out of there. There is a little bit more moisture in the base, but I think we are certainly in the home stretch here. Another week of drying. Is a 10-day forecast of all 90s and no rain coming. I think that last week is gonna really dry out this corn. It'll be ready for bush hogging. Probably gonna bush hog it 2 weeks before the season comes in, do half of it, do strips in it, and the week before the season comes in, do the other half, and hopefully knock it all to the ground. So something is eating the top half of this guy off, but everything down below is nice hard corn, and that is not far off of being ready. I pulled that husk off to get a better look at it, and yeah, if you can pop and roll that corn out of here, you know you're close. So I think our timing on this was impeccable. We planted May 6th, and here we are, August 13th, exactly 3 weeks of dove season. I think that corn timing was perfect to be able to bush hog this in about 1 week, so 2 weeks before the season comes in. And I didn't film it, but I just ran a flurry of doves out of the bottom end of this cornfield. Man, this is a big old cob here. Let's open this guy up and see what it looks like. This was actually one of those triple-headed ones, but those secondary little ones didn't produce anything. But that is a big old cob that the coons are working on. See, that's what it's all about. Big old cob of corn. Coons are working on it, but there's still plenty of corn left to be scattered on the ground for the doves. And that corn is just falling out 3 weeks before the season comes in. I think we're going to be in perfect shape to bush hog this here in another week. Sunflower field was not overly impressive this year. If you've been following along, you know that. There is plenty of seed still up there, I think, to draw some birds. But I'm pretty excited about this first year doing corn. It's not perfect. It's not beautiful, clean corn. But there is bare ground, and there's a lot of cobs drying out just in time to get this field ready for the opener. And you never know what might volunteer from the previous year. This is all brown top millet we planted in here last year at this lower end, where the sunflowers were eat out by the deer. And it has volunteered itself all back in, and the pre-emergence also didn't control it, and the glyphosate didn't have a chance to hit it. I guess it hadn't emerged yet. But we actually got a pretty big swath of brown top millet along this whole edge of this field over here. So that's pretty cool. There's got to be 50 doves in the trees up there. They're absolutely piled in that oak tree and flushed out of this millet field. Look at them all. Now we are on to the most anticipated millet field of all time. I'm just kidding. We did the battle of the millets out here, comparing a couple of different types of millet, and I can see some pearl millet that finally did come up. So we were sold pearl millet. It's just we don't have a lush stand of it, but that's pretty cool. I had not noticed that. We're standing here in the brown top millet field, and let me show you this. a carpet of dried out millet, an absolute carpet of it. That's what these doves are sitting in here eating, because the way this brown top lays over, the doves can actually land on it and feed sitting right on top of it. It's not as vertically tall as that Japanese is. This millet is perfectly dry enough where I think in another week, we're gonna probably be able to burn this. Now, my only concern is there is a lot of volunteer grass in here. There's some foxtail in here. I don't know if that's gonna burn or let us burn, but if nothing else, we might could burn all the dried out brown top through it. And if we have a few stands of the green left around, that's probably okay. Here is the pearl millet. This is what I was expecting to see a couple weeks ago, and I did not recognize this stalk, and that's probably why I didn't key in on it, but that is the pearl millet. So we did get sold pearl millet. It just didn't get quite the coverage I would have expected like the Japanese millet got. A lot of millet, we have a lot of variety, Japanese millet, predominantly brown top millet. This is the pearl millet. We've got the barnyard grass, which also produces a millet seed head, very natural, doves love it. We've also got foxtail millet, which we planted before, so that could be a volunteer or it could be reseeding itself from a prior year planting. But we've got at least 5 different seed-bearing plants in here, all of which the doves love. As somebody said in the comments, the most expensive strip of Japanese millet ever. That's not too far from the truth, because we did dump a whole bag of fertilizer just on this little strip, but it is paying dividends. We've got a bunch of Japanese millet and some fairly good-sized seed heads. The Japanese millet is starting to brown out. It's not as brown as the brown top millet is. That's probably because it had extra nitrogen and it continued to grow longer. And it's got a lot more stalk that has to dry up first. I do think with this week in 90s, that we'll still be able to burn this part of the field no problem. I believe the deer are in here bedding down. This is a nice carpet for them, nice bedding area. There's all kinds of beds in here, which helps mat the millet down, which is actually a good thing. That actually helps the birds get in here and start feeding on this by it all not being so tall and vertical. Side-by-side comparison to the Japanese millet, you can tell there's a lot more seed on that pearl millet head. Now, it's also much wetter. This hasn't dried out yet, so it is gonna shrink some. But in general, I would say one pearl millet head has got twice as much seed as the Japanese millet. We might have completed what they call the millet grand slam here. Brown top millet, foxtail millet, pearl millet, Japanese millet. We got it all, man. I cannot wait to set this field on fire. I do think I like the brown top millet better than about any of the rest of it. It does seem to mature out and then dry out the quickest, which is good. We're trying to keep things moving out here and avoid any herbicide use to brown all this out. And because it has so much less leaf structure on it and it dries out quicker, it also seems to mat up on the ground much lower, making it a lot quicker and easier to burn, where we don't have as much material in here we're having to mess with. And all this seed laying down here is very accessible to the birds. They can actually just stand right on top of this brown top. So if I had to pick my favorite, I'm gonna have to pick the brown top millet. We've got dried out seeds sitting on the ground, running 20, 30 doves out of the corner of this field. That's what it's all about. Next video will probably be the fire burning video. You're not gonna wanna miss it. But until then, thanks for watching. God bless, take care.